first of all, I want to preface this by saying, you know how I feel about the Sullivan McNamara battle.
Yeah, we pretty much have agreed.
Yeah, we have agreed on that. However, for you to say he is not a good quarterback,
he's not a good quarterback.
I think that's unfair. I don't think that's a fair statement, and I don't think you can make it. I don't think you've listen based upon what. Well, you make it all you want, but
this is what I'm basing it on, Corey. This is what I'm basing it on. If you were just stating, is he a good quarterback in a vacuum, meaning we're just judging his ability to run an offense, make throws. Yes, he can capably play the position in big time college football. He's done it for a full season plus. The one full season he did it capably. The other, what are we working on now? 8 games that he's played other than that full season at Michigan. Okay. But we are comparing him to other people, other quarterbacks that play the position more capably. So against his competition, no, he's not a good quarterback.
Here's the deal. The problem is, here's the problem. The problem is you can't really evaluate him based on last year because he was hurt. Okay. And the year before that, he didn't play, right? He got hurt and didn't play. J.J. McCarthy beat him out. The year before that, he was good. He was the definition of good for Michigan, regardless of what was around him. And don't act like you're going to come back and say, well, I guarantee you, if we rewind the tape 3 years ago, you were not on this show saying Cade McNamara was not a good quarterback. If it ever got brought up, I guarantee you would have said he's a good quarterback. You wouldn't have said he's not good just because he wasn't some grandiose playmaker. Yeah, he's not, he's not Nico. He's not a lot of these guys, but
sure.
I just, language is very powerful.
It is. And I am very careful to use the proper language and the language that I intend. Now, like you, we talk a lot on these channels for umpteen hours a week. Me as much, if not more than you.
Don't be showing stats here. Don't be showing stats.
There we go.
Hold on. Don't be showing player stats. First of all, that's dumb. First of all, it's a dumb way of going about this. You and I both know that. It is a dumb way of going about this, and you and I both know that.
It's not a dumb way to go about
Iowa has the leading rusher in the Big Ten. Don't go down this rabbit hole. You don't want to go down there. They have the leading rusher in the Big Ten.
It shows my point.
It doesn't show your point. They have the leading rusher in the Big Ten. They have according to the numbers, let's look up rush offense.
Okay.
Why would you want
had the leading rusher in the Big Ten and still had the best quarterback in the Big Ten?
Oh, okay. So let's look at the best team in the Big Ten and one of the best programs year to year in the country and compare the situations. You and I both know that's not apples to apples.
I'm countering that just because it can be done. You can have an elite quarterback and an elite running game, both.
However, when the pieces around your quarterback, specifically at skill position spots like receiver, are behind, and you've got an exceptional offensive line that's blocking for an exceptional running back who's a Doak Walker Award winner and right now is a leading rusher in the country, why on earth would you be stat seeking? You're not.
Absolutely.
They threw the ball 19 times against Minnesota on the road in spite of being behind at halftime. And let me remind you something else, Mark. And Tim Lester brought this up in his press conference. And I know it sounds like I'm here's trying to defend Cade. Honestly, as you go back and watch that game back, 11 of 19, there were at least 3 outright drops. Tim brought it up in the press conference. This is the case with any offense and any quarterback and any coordinator. But Tim brought it up midweek. 3 drops. You also had at least 2 plays where the route was ran wrong. And what Tim said is the ball was thrown right on time, right on target, where it was supposed to be. The route was ran wrong. And then there was the only sack of the game. Tim said that was a horrific call on my part. And the only thing we would have liked him to get the ball out quicker so that the sack didn't get taken. But that's totally on me. So the way Tim Lester, who I think you have a lot of respect for as it relates to evaluating quarterback play, unlike previous people who were doing this at Iowa. You look at that from that perspective, he was like 11 to 13. He's like 11 to 13. So 62 yards doesn't tell me anything. You're looking at passer rating, but that's impacted by yardage.
Passer rating is also
impacted by yardage.
Compilation stat. I'm not looking at like total yards. I would never do that to him. But passer rating is about efficiency and effectiveness.
Sure,
and
but
it's only one stat. It's not the end all be all. I'm not putting it up there as this is the number one guy, the number two guy. It's just I'm just putting up the stats. Let's do this. Let's go through every quarterback in the Big Ten, and you tell me
we can do that. You did it earlier. We can do it.
And I will tell you who I will take.
All right.
Drew Aller, Cade McNamara.
Aller.
Curtis Rourke, Cade McNamara.
Rourke.
Okay. And I'll even say with some of these guys, it's a toss-up.
No, I'm not going to be, believe me, this is not some huge bias on my part. Keep going.
Okay. Dylan Gabriel, Cade McNamara.
Gabriel.
Will Howard, Cade McNamara.
Howard.
Will Rogers, Cade McNamara.
Rogers. Although I've not been impressed with him, I'd still take him. I've not been impressed with that offense.
75%, 8 touchdowns, no picks.
No, I'm still taking him, but I'm just saying that I don't know that he's led them any better than Cade has led his team.
Luke Altmaier, Cade McNamara.
I think it's a lot closer than it was made out to be earlier, but I'll take Altmaier based on how he's played in some big games this year. And I'm not ignoring the stats. His stats are 172 passer rating. He's 71%. That's really good.
10 touchdowns, no picks. And these guys all have more ability. It's not just statistical. They have better ability.
Yeah, and I just want to point something out. You look at all those guys ahead of him. The only guy that I see with less, let's see, how many guys with less attempts? Actually, there's more than 102. That's actually surprising to me. But, yeah, I mean, Cade's 63%. That's a pretty good number based upon recent results from that offense.
Yeah.
But we're not judging Cade versus previous quarterbacks. We're judging them based on the rest of the Big Ten. I haven't watched Billy Edwards more than a few snaps this year. I know his name got brought up. And I really haven't watched Cade McNamara. Obviously, Rutgers was pretty good tonight, but.
And I even said that I would lean toward McNamara over Billy Edwards, but he's off to a nice start. 75%, 8 touchdowns, 2 picks, and that includes a Michigan State game.
Let's just jump the gun here, Mark. I would take Cade. I'd likely take Cade over Brosmer, Van Dyke, Garbers, Childs, Warren, Locke, and anybody who's playing at Northwestern. So that's still probably bottom half, but I mean,
so
yeah, bottom half. Sure, I'll agree with you. Well, you I think said you could find maybe 2 or 3 guys that were worse than Cade. I just named at least 6.
Whoa.
I mean, you disagree with that estimation? Tyler Van Dyke hasn't been very good.
Go back here. You're okay. Over the Northwestern quarterbacks, you can't put Locke and Van Dyke. They're one quarterback together. They're the Wisconsin quarterbacks. So you'll take Cade McNamara over the Northwestern quarterbacks, the Wisconsin quarterbacks.
Yeah.
The Aiden Childs at Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
Ethan Garbers at UCLA. That's 4. And Max Brosmer with Minnesota. 5.
And I guess Edwards, again, I haven't seen him, but you said earlier you thought so. That would be 6. Here's the deal. As it relates to Cade, I want to go back to my original point regarding the run game, because the completion percentages are fine. The pass per attempt number is very low, and obviously yardage is going to be low. Those two stats are associated with one another. Touchdown count is low, but you know what? Honestly, interception count is really low. I mean, Aiden Childs has got 7 picks on the season.
And he's also just starting his career.
Well, not really. He came from Oregon State and just
And he
wasn't
was not
playing.
the starting quarterback. He
Well,
is just
that's
starting
his
his
problem.
career.
Yeah, that's
He
his
is
problem,
just
though.
starting his career.
Well,
And
so
and let's say we'll go with your 6 quarterbacks or 6 quarterbacked teams below McNamara. I'm not putting in a poor quarterback conference, I'm not putting the 12th best quarterback in the league as a good quarterback.
yeah, I mean that we could debate that all day long as well, because are we good? I mean, good compared to if you have to be upper half of the Big Ten to be good. I think Matthew's point is solid. I think there's a lot of mediocre quarterbacks, and I don't think there's a lot of separation between even some of the guys like Callie Manis and Altmaier. I don't think there's a. Frankly, you and I have talked about what's his face, Will Howard. His job is pretty easy right now, right? Would you disagree with that?
It is easy right now, and it's relatively easy compared to other quarterbacks, but based on what's expected of him, it's not going to be real easy when he's got to beat Alabama and Georgia or Texas or whomever else in a row in December and January.
I think the people I've been impressed with most, and I don't have time to watch probably as much as a lot of people in the chat do, but the people that I've been impressed with the most, um, I Penn State struggled, but obviously Drew Aller's numbers are really good. But this kid from Indiana that I really didn't know anything about, he's probably the guy that, I mean, obviously Indiana's the biggest surprise to this point and what Cignetti's done. But yeah, I mean, if you're middle third of the Big Ten, Mark, of one of the two best conferences in college football at any level, yeah, that's good. That's you're probably a good quarterback to be in that place. Now, good again depends on your definition of good. Are we comparing it to the rest of the conference?
Yeah. But I will also underline though that just because you play in the second best conference doesn't mean you play in a collection of the second best quarterbacks.
Those and I just want to highlight one other thing to keep in mind if people are going to bring this up. Touchdown counts low. He'd probably have a couple more touchdowns if they had stuck with him in the red zone. But they had one game where they struggled in the red zone, and they take him out every time they get down into scoring territory. They remove him from the game now, and they bring in Brendan Sullivan. So, and I do think having a rushing game like Iowa's had, which they've not had in a long time, having a rush game like they have right now changes almost every one of the stats that's on the screen, with the exception maybe being completion percentage shouldn't be impacted. If anything, it should be positively impacted. But yardage is going to be impacted. Touchdowns is going to be impacted. Even average pass per attempt is going to be impacted, because why take risks down the field? Tim talked about that during his press conference this week. Why take these big risks? He had a couple of deep balls dialed up this week, and you and I talked about this Tuesday, and he was voted down during the game because, hey, first of all, why show them when you have Ohio State on the schedule next? And second of all, you're controlling the game. Hey, they outscored Minnesota 24-0 in the second half without doing anything in the passing game. So I just think it's hard to evaluate Cade collectively to this point, more so than a lot of the guys on this list who have been in a position where they've had to showcase their talents, or in some cases, maybe lack thereof. I don't think Cade's really been called upon at all to do anything. And that's reflected by his per attempt numbers, because again, his completion percentage is good. His per attempt numbers are down. What does that tell you? Either he's checking down a lot or he's not being asked to throw the ball downfield very much. And I don't think that's because he can't. I think it's because they don't need to.
Our buddy Matthew Miller is going with Aiden Childs over Cade McNamara. That's great. He's a more talented player, but he throws the ball to the other team, so that's not what you want.
He's got seven interceptions and a 54% completion percentage. So appreciate that comment. However, I don't know that holds much of any water. He's got some of the worst stats in this. I'm honestly, again, I don't know exactly the formula to generate passer rating, but he's got one of the he's got like the worst as a full-time starter. He's got the worst completion percentage in the conference. Am I reading that correct?
Probably
50,
54.
54%,
Yeah.
and we're just starting Big Ten play. That's like Deacon Hill-esque. Now his per attempt numbers are decent, but man, 7 picks to this point.
Well, they did play Maryland and Boston College, so they played 2 decent teams.
Sure. Yeah. As has Iowa. I mean, I guess a lot of teams at this point, you've played 2 Power Fours.
Yeah, the Northwestern quarterbacks are bad.
So, Mark, one thing, I know you're probably trying to get to bed here. Can you address my question at the outset? Just tell me the importance of Ohio State and just not just how they look against Michigan State tomorrow night. I know people really aren't talking about that game because there's plenty of other big games to discuss, but just having the Iowa game, one home game sandwiched between, a former rivalry. I'd call it Ohio State, Michigan State a rivalry, at least in the last decade. It certainly has been. On the road at night somewhere, then you have Iowa, then you go on the road to Eugene. I just think it's an interesting, obviously unprecedented in this conference because of Oregon's joining and the fact that they have to travel out west. But I do think the makeup of that paired with the fact that Iowa is on a bye right now makes this sort of interesting.